I'd like to show you how to coat a board in royal icing. So this board would represent the top of a cake. So I need a board, I need a turntable, I need a palette knife, a straight edge. So this is a piece of equipment, it's like a ruler, it's called a straight edge. I can use a non-stick mat, always have a cloth and my royal icing. Okay, now to stop the board moving, and they do tend to move, mind you that one's not moving quite as much, I can use a non-stick mat. So placing the non-stick mat on there will stop it sliding. If I haven't got a non-stick mat, I can put it on a damp cloth and that would work as well. I might show you on a damp cloth actually. That will just stop it moving around. I've also got a little bit of Merry White here mixed up, because what I want is to show you how to get to the right consistency. So this royal icing is piping consistency, it's holding its shape. I want it a little bit softer than this, not a lot softer. And I'll add in a touch of Merry White mixed with water. Now the reason it's Merry White dissolved in the water and not just water is because it would weaken the royal icing wouldn't set. So I'm just going to keep adding a little bit at a time until the consistency is right. If I add too much to it, the royal icing would be too wet, and when I coat the board it would cause big air bubbles coming up overnight. That's not too bad. Okay, I don't know whether you can see that, it's just got that more wetter to look. It's a soft peak, can you see how that's curling round? Now, I'm going to use a technique called paddling. I'm going to put the royal icing on, starting in the middle. Always keep your royal icing covered up. And I'm going to, with a palette knife, just going to clean that palette knife a little bit. With the palette knife, I'm going to paddle the royal icing. So you're spreading it backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Now this technique is called paddling. The reason for this technique is one, so I can get a nice level piece of royal icing on the board, and also to get rid of any air bubbles. Now I can see lots of air bubbles popping up here. I'm not sure whether you'll be able to see it on the camera. But there's like little holes. So I'm flattening the royal icing out, and that will get rid of, it'll break up some of the air bubbles. What you can do, this is another technique, is you can paddle on the table. So I can go backwards and forwards on the table to get rid of the air bubbles. If you're using royal icing that's got a lot of air bubbles in, this is a good technique. And then put that royal icing on the board. I'm going backwards and forwards. That royal icing is gradually working towards the edge of the board. It's becoming quite level, and it's also getting rid of any air bubbles. When it comes to the edge, I can start using my straight edge. If this was a cake, I'd give it 2 coats of royal icing. So I'd coat it once and leave it to dry, and then coat it a second time. The second time I would coat it, it would be a very thin coat, and you'd get a better finish. Put your fingers on top, so you hold the straight edge, index finger on top, your thumb at the side, and your fingers on the other side. It's really important you learn how to hold that ruler correctly. You start in the middle, and you can see I'm not holding it flat, I'm tilting it slightly. And I'm going across, tilting it the other way, coming back. And I'm stopping on the board. I'm not lifting it away from the board as I'm doing this. Backwards and forwards. Backwards and forwards. and I'm looking at the board as I do it to see whether I'm pleased with the covering. Enough. Now, if I'm not very pleased with the covering, if it's got lots of air bubbles in or it's got lines going across, I can keep doing it. So I can add more royal icing. Now this technique is not easy. It's a technique that you need to practice. You can practice on a cake tin, that's why I'm doing cake tin or a biscuit tin. You've got your ruler, it's got royal icing on it needs to be clean. If I don't clean it before I use it, it will cause drag lines going backwards and forward. Fingers on top, to the side, and your thumb on the other side, and you can control it well. So the technique I'm using is that way, and tilting is coming that way, tilting coming that way. I just realised my turntable's moving, so, and this, I'm glad it's happening because this might be a problem you have. I'm just going to see if that helps. Another way of doing this is getting a friend to hold it. It is moving, isn't it? Enough. So, what am I looking for? I'm looking for any lines that I might have on there, where the ruler hasn't quite met the royal icing. I'm looking for air bubbles. But saying that, because this is only going to be coated once, I can fill in the odd air bubble when it's dry, and I can show you that technique later. Lift your board. I'm also looking to see if it's nice and level. Use a clean palette knife. I'm going to put this down while I clean my palette knife. It's actually, believe it or not, easier to coat a cake than it is a board because of the way they move. Use your palette knife and scrape down. So it's important that you scrape down when you do it because it takes the royal icing off. If you just go around, that royal icing will go back on top, which you don't want to happen. Scrape down. So you can see each time I'm cleaning my palette knife down. Down. Take off any royal icing you've got and neaten it up. Yeah. So that's quite level. Oops, that's quite level. It's got a few air bubbles, I don't know whether you can see them. But I can show you how to fill those in, just the odd one or two, and no lines on it, and I'm quite pleased with that. And that can be left to dry. Okay, thank you very much.